Okay, so this is part 2. We're going to be starting this video on step 7 of the document that we refer to in the class. The first video detailed these first 6 steps. So we're going to add an enemy sprite. Okay, so just like in the previous steps before, we are going to double click, and remember our player layer is unlocked. So anybody that's following these steps in class right now, your background layer should be locked, your player layer should be unlocked, and then when you double click, you're going to add a sprite. And remember, this is going to be an enemy. And so when you click, you need to obviously give it a size, and the size is going to be 30/30. Guys, please listen up. Thank you. So right here, Alt-R, or if you press this button, will open up your size dialog box. And you're going to put in 30, press tab on the keyboard, 30, and then just say OK. Now the color isn't defined, so once again, we've done this before. You're going to click on the paint bucket right here that I'm circling on the screen. And then over here, you're going to define the color. And obviously, if you're making your own game, your own colors, of course, are your own choice. But since we're following directions, we want 50, 50, 50 for our red, green, and blue values. And then you're just going to click inside that square. And then I like to click the crop button just to make sure everything is fitting to the size that I set it. So it should be 30/30. And then we crop it. So at this point, when you click this button, you should see 30/30. All right, and then obviously our color is 50, 50, 50. So we have this thing called enemy, but it doesn't really have a name yet. So you need to come over to this area and change the name to enemy. But it's actually enemy rotate, because we're going to have some enemies that don't rotate and some that do. So enemy, all underscore, capital R for rotate. All right, and that way you have the camel lettering that's been preserved. You can see it, but it's not going to mess up with coding. And we have an enemy. Okay. Let's add a smaller one. We want to do the exact same thing, but with 2020. All right, so repeat the steps. Double click, type sprite, click, resize by 2020, so 20 tab, 20 tab. You already have the color selected, so all you have to do is hit and then crop. All right, should say 2020. Okay, and then you should be able to close it. And now I have an enemy that's 2020 and an enemy that's 30/30. Okay, but they're just sitting there. Now, obviously, we need to rename the smallest one that we just made, and the smallest one that we made is called Sine Horizontal. Okay, so you're just going to type in SIN HORIZONTAL, horizontal. Okay. So Sine Horizontal is placed here for the name of the sprite because it's going to be moving horizontal using the sine behavior. Okay. With that being said, we're going to add the sine behavior. So take the smallest one, right? This one that I'm circling on the screen, and then go over to your behaviors and add a new behavior called sine. So just type in SIN and it will pop up SINE and hit add. Okay, it's a very easy way of making things move with very little programming, if any at all. Okay. All right. So behavior for the movement is preset to horizontal. We're going to clone the enemy. Okay, so you need to right click on the enemy. Cloning is different than copying. All right, so you're going to right click on this and you're going to go down to clone object type. What it's going to do is it's going to make another sprite that's not going to be linked to its partner. Okay, so once you clone it, you need to change the name to Sine Vertical. So if I type in Sine Vertical up here, we have a Sine Vertical, a Sine Horizontal, we have a rotate enemy. All right, I'm going to put my enemies up here because they're not part of the game until they randomly appear, but they need to exist. All right, so I like to recommend that you put them up here at the top outside of your viewport. And now we're going to change Sine horizontal stays with Sine vertical, you need to change the movement to vertical, right here. Real easy. But take a minute, let's take a look at some other movements. We have forward and backwards. We have somehow width and height, so we can move. We can make this thing grow. We have size, we have an angle, opacity, a Z elevation by layer. So there might be some interesting things you can experiment with. But we're going to set this to vertical. This one's set to horizontal. And if I were to move these in right now, let's just press play and see what happens. All right, let's just see what happens. You can see my horizontal and my vertical enemies moving in a horizontal or a vertical fashion. There was no coding. This was the sine behavior, right? The sine behavior was applied right there, and then I just chose the movement type to be horizontal, and the other one I chose the movement type to be vertical. Okay? And just to reiterate where we are for objects in the game, we have a background, an enemy rotate, a player, a sine horizontal, and a sine vertical. All right, so we are going to add particle effects in the next couple minutes after I believe we make a family. Okay, and this is going to be one of the benefits of showing how a family is helpful. We got to make a collectible. So let's make another sprite. All right, sprite. The sprite is going to be a size of 2525. So up here on your size, click 2525, and I know I'm probably going faster than a lot can follow. But once again, you have the video to rely on, and you have these steps that I'm using. Okay, I'm not expecting it to be done when I'm finished speaking. The color is 250, 250, 250. It's an off-white color. It's the same color as the player. And obviously, if you get creative and you want to make your own colors, that's fine too. You can go back here and change these colors. All right, and that is a collectible. All right, so we have to rename it collectible. So the rename is up here. I'm doing a lot of repetitious behaviors here. Collectibles done. All right, add player behaviors bound to layout. So we're going to click on the player right in the middle. Bless you. Right in the middle, click them. Go over to behaviors. And we're going to do this thing called bound to layout. It can't leave the layout without really shutting the game off, right? It's physically impossible. We don't have to code for this. Type in bound. And you're going to see bound to layout. This is what you're going to use when you want to keep your player in the window. You won't let them leave. You can't let them leave the screen, okay? So that's what ties this little square. So I just clicked behavior here. And then I added and I typed in bound. And it showed up. That's it. I didn't do anything to it. I just added it. Okay? At this point, we have added the ingredients for the game. We have the 3 types of enemies. We have a collectible. And now we're going to do a little bit of some controls. Okay? This is a good opportunity to hit save just to make sure. Right? Save changes. And then we're going to jump over to the event sheet, and I'm going to take a quick time check to see where I am, because I don't want to go over. We're at 8 minutes and 47 seconds. Let's see if we can get the auto rotate to happen before the time period is up that I want to make for this video. All right. We're going to add in the event every tick. So it's a system every, and then double click tick, every tick. So for every measure of time that this game can do, these are the things we're going to have on a regular basis. Always going to run. Sorry, I lost my place. Every tick, we are going to rotate the enemy clockwise. So we're going to go over to add action. And we're going to take enemy rotate. This is why naming your things is helpful, right? So I know that this is the one that's going to be rotatable. So I'm going to double click enemy rotate. And now I'm going to type in rotate. I don't care if you choose clockwise or counterclockwise. Sometimes it's neat to watch things go opposite directions. So if you pick one way, pick the other way later. So let's do rotate clockwise. 1 degree every tick. Now if I hit play, if you want to bring your enemies in for a minute so you can kind of see what's going to happen, right? Just bring them in a little bit and hit play. Let's see. So we have sine moving horizontal and vertical, and then we have this one that we just coded. Every tick, this rotates 1 degree. All right, so we have like some movement going on. Right now I can't move the player, so I think that's the next thing we're going to do. All right, and so the next set of the videos that we're going to do, and I would maybe like to do it tomorrow first thing, looking at the steps. Okay, we just finished here. Okay, so starting with video 3, we're going to start on step 3 of adding the touch object to the game and then setting the mouse's X and Y position to the character sprite so that it can follow the mouse. So this will be video 3. Okay, so at this point I'm going to stop recording and then I'll put this in the Google Classroom